Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a Monday morning episode of the Call Sheet Podcast here at Fans First Sports Network. Kevin Smith back with you after a little vacay. Took the family down to the Florida Keys for a little getaway. Kids were on spring break. Wife needed a little break from teaching. I was happy to get out of the Northeast, cold winter here. Went down to Key Largo, enjoyed ourselves for a few days, but now we're back. And it is go time. The NFL draft just a week and a half away. We're going to have a busy week and a half here at the Call Sheet at Fans First. I can't wait. Awful lot to talk about. Let's jump right in with our Monday morning general manager show. And on today's show, we are looking at which NFL teams have been the best in the draft over the last 5 years. Who has drafted the best over the past 5 years? There's no real scientific metric to this. I mean, you could probably come up with a rubric of sorts where maybe you evaluated teams based upon the number of starters they've landed or games played by draftees or the number of draft picks that they've had over the past 5 years who've made their roster. There's probably ways to do it. I think the best way, though, really is just to kind of go through the impact that these drafts have had upon NFL franchises, and have they led to success? Have they drafted impact players who have helped them succeed on the field? That will be our loose metric for gauging this evaluation. And there were more than 5 teams I considered. Let's do some quick honorable mention. I narrowed it down to 5. A couple of teams I excluded. Maybe they would just be outside the top 5, would include the Chargers, who have done a nice job, particularly drafting offensive linemen, building a strong offensive line. I think the Rams, even though the Rams love trading away picks, but they've done a good job with the ones that they have kept of landing impact players. The Bengals haven't done a great job top to bottom, but at the top, I mean, the Bengals landed Burrow and Chase and Higgins in the past 5 drafts. And that there's the core of their team. I mean, when you land your 3 best players, that speaks highly to your ability, at least to nail the top of the draft. Pittsburgh Steelers, always a good drafting team, haven't been great lately in the first round, but they've done a nice job in the second, third, and into the middle rounds of finding starting quality players. So the depth of their drafts are kind of the opposite of the Bengals. Bengals drafts have been top heavy. Steelers drafts have been pretty good for depth. But who are our top 5? Who are our 5 best teams over the last 5 years at nailing the draft? And we'll start with number 5, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Shout out to their general manager. This is Monday Morning GM. Shout out to their general manager, Jason Licht, who's been on the job now since 2014, 12 years on the job. He built a Super Bowl championship team a few years ago after recruiting Tom Brady to Tampa Bay. And he's done a wonderful job of just in each draft, they've found good players at the top and then a sneaky good player further down in the draft. For example, last year, Emeka Egbuka, their number 1 pick, great year, almost had 1,000 yards receiving, 6 touchdowns. It's going to be a fixture there. But then you go all the way down to the 7th round, and they pick Tez Johnson, wide receiver out of Oregon, quick slot type in the 7th round. And he catches 28 balls and 5 touchdowns. You get 5 touchdowns out of your 7th round pick as a rookie. That's a great job. 2024, they land Graham Barton, the center from Duke, in the 1st round. He has been, he started all 33 games that he has been eligible to play in or healthy to play in. They get Jalen McMillan in that draft. He's been a good receiver for them. They get Bucky Irving in that draft. He's their starting running back, 1,700 yards rushing in his first 2 seasons. 2023, they land Kalijah Kancey, the D lineman out of Pitt. Been a starter since his rookie year. Yaya Diaby's got 19 sacks. The D lineman out of Louisville, they land him in that draft. I mean, you can see like in each draft, they're getting quality players. In 2021, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka out of Washington, the outside backer. He's been a consistent starter now for 4 years. They got Cade Otton in 2022, tight end out of Washington. He's got over 200 receptions. So you look at what they've done. Rachaad White, I didn't even mention Rachaad White, right? He's actually been the primary back. He and Irving make up that running back by committee there in Tampa. But White's actually outgained Irving in total yards over his career. So it feels like in every draft, they're getting 2 to 3 impact players. And even though you think, oh, well, you get 7, 8 picks in a draft, that's about the average. A good team should be landing somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 impact players in each draft. If you can do that, you're going to do well. And that's what Tampa Bay has been able to do. They're number 5. All right, number 4 on our list, Houston Texans. General manager Nick Caserio, been on the job since 2021, and in his 5 drafts, they've done a great job of landing impact players. Last year, it was Jaden Higgins, wide receiver out of Iowa State in the first round. Good rookie year, had 6 touchdown catches. Jalen Noel, his teammate at Iowa State, wasn't a starter, but as a 3rd-round pick, was in the rotation, ended up with 26 catches, had a decent rookie year. Woody Marks, the running back out of USC, ran for over 700 yards as a rookie. So you get 3 important pieces on Houston's offense as rookies from last year's class. You go back to the 2024 class, you get Kamari Lassiter. They didn't have a first-round pick, but they get Lassiter, starting D-back out of Georgia. He's got 7 career interceptions over a couple of years. They get Cade Stover, who's starting tight end out of Ohio State. But the big draft for them is the 2023 draft, right? This is the draft where Nick Caserio really nails it. He's got the number 2 and number 3 overall picks in the draft that year. And he lands CJ Stroud and Will Anderson. Franchise quarterback and a defensive player of the year candidate who's got 30 sacks in his first 3 seasons, Will Anderson. But you also got Tank Dell. You got Henry To'o. Henry, no disrespect, I can't pronounce your last name. How do you pronounce T-O apostrophe O, T-O apostrophe O? I should have looked it up. I don't mean to be disrespectful. But starting linebacker out of Alabama. And then Xavier Hutchinson has been a pretty good wide receiver for them as a role player. And go back one more. In 2022, they get Derek Stingley, defensive player of the year candidate. He's got 15 interceptions over his career. And in the second round that year, they get Jalen Pitre, who is your prototypical star. And I don't mean that as like the best player, but star / nickel / strong safety type. When I was doing my Gridiron Glossary show last week, we talked about the star player, the star position. Again, that hybrid strong safety is transforming modern defenses. That's Jalen Pitre, who has been a tremendous player for the Texans since he walked into the league. And one more, 2021, Nick Caserio's first draft. They don't have a first or a second round pick, but in the 3rd round, they get Nico Collins, the wide receiver out of Michigan, who's got almost 300 catches so far in his career. And they get Davis Mills, who is arguably the best backup quarterback in the NFL. You look at what Davis Mills has done over his career, 40 touchdowns, was good last year when he had to fill in for CJ Stroud. The Texans went 3-1 with Davis Mills filling in. So yeah, Houston, great job by the Texans of finding impact players both high in the draft and in the middle rounds, and even at times late. All right, number 3 on our list. Number 3, the Super Bowl champs, the Seattle Seahawks. You want to talk about a team that's been able to draft impact players that have helped them on the field. Well, the Seahawks, John Schneider, maybe arguably the best GM in the NFL. I mean, this guy has built 2 Super Bowl winning teams with completely different rosters and coaching staffs. That was one of my favorite statistics that emerged last year after Seattle won the Super Bowl, that the Seahawks team that won the Super Bowl had an entirely different roster and an entirely different coaching staff from the one that won it back in 2014. Not a single repeat player or coach. So John Schneider built a Super Bowl championship team around Russell Wilson and that Legion of Boom defense. And then they all went away and he built another one. And how did he do it? On the backs of his last 5 drafts. Look at his last 5 drafts, right? We go back to 2021. They only had a couple of picks in that draft. They only had 3 picks in that draft. They didn't get any great impact players there, but beginning in 2022, they have killed it. 2022, they get starting offensive lineman Charles Cross, who's been to a couple Pro Bowls. They get Kenneth Walker, who was an absolute dude, the MVP of the Super Bowl. He's obviously just moved on and left to go to Kansas City. They get starting quality players, a couple of corners, Kobe Bryant and Rick Woolen, both of whom made a huge impact in their Super Bowl run. The next year, 2023, I mean, that is an absolute, arguably the best single draft of the 2020s so far. They get Devin Witherspoon, perennial all-pro in the first round. They get Jackson Smith-Njigba, the offensive player of the year last season, in the second round. They get Derek Hall, starting defensive end, also in the second round. They get Zach Charbonnet, who was their platoon back with Kenneth Walker. Those were their first 4 picks: Witherspoon, Smith-Njigba, Hall, and Charbonnet. I mean, that's as impactful as you could possibly ask for in the draft. And then in 2024, Byron Murphy in the first round, who's been an absolute dude on the defensive line for them. I mean, they've just stocked up on impact players. Oh, and 2025, Gray Zabel, starting offensive tackle out of North Dakota State, who looks like a cornerstone of that franchise, like he's going to be there for the next decade. And then Nick Emmanwori, who might, along with Kyle Hamilton right now, be the prototype for the hybrid strong safety that is revolutionizing modern defense. And who knows, they may in that draft have even landed a future franchise quarterback in Jalen Milroe, or at least an interesting trade piece at some point down the line. So John Schneider, Seahawks GM, you can make an argument he's the best in the business right now. All right, number 2 on our list, Detroit Lions, the perennially sad sack Lions, right? A team who were one of the losingest franchises in the NFL in the 21st century, turned their fortunes around in 2021 when they hired Brad Holmes as their GM, Dan Campbell as their head coach, and that duo has now used the draft to build Detroit into a championship contender. Maybe underachieved a little bit last season, but I expect Detroit transition year, right, when they lost both their coordinators, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, but I expect them to be back this year. All right, how did they do it? Who did they land through the draft? Well, the 2021 draft was phenomenal. You get Penei Sewell, one of the best offensive linemen in the game, in the first round. You get Alim McNeill, been a starter for 4 years now, in the third round, defensive tackle. You get Amon-Ra St. Brown in the fourth round of that draft. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4th round. 547 catches, 6,200 yards, 44 touchdowns in his career. 3 unbelievably successful picks in that draft. 2022, you get Aiden Hutchinson in the first round. Guy's got 43 sacks so far in his NFL career, and that's while missing most of the 2024 season. Jameson Williams, big-time impact receiver out of Alabama. You get him in that draft. You get Kirby Joseph, starting defensive back in that draft. You get James Houston, starting linebackers, got 14 and a half sacks for his career. I mean, that's 7 starters in 2 drafts. Oh, and then you think that was good? Look at 2023. It gets better in 2023. Round 1, you got 2 picks in round 1. Jahmyr Gibbs, I'd make an argument that along with Bijan Robinson, those are your two best running backs in the NFL. Jack Campbell, phenomenal inside linebacker, third in the NFL in tackles last year. Sam Laporta, impact tight end, 186 catches, over 2,000 receiving yards in his 3 years in the NFL. Brian Branch, all-pro safety. I mean, my goodness, that's 11 starters in 3 drafts. That's half their starting lineup in 3 drafts from 2021 to 2023. Hasn't been as good the last 2 years. I mean, Terrion Arnold, the number 1 pick in 2024, has had his ups and downs. Tyleik Williams, the number 1 pick last year, defensive tackle out of Ohio State, same deal. They did get a starting O-lineman in Tate Ratledge out of Georgia, impact player, excellent football player. And Isaac TeSlaa, who they drafted last year, had a good rookie season, 6 touchdowns as a rookie. That's significant. But it's hard to match what they did in the draft in 2021 to 2023. They built the core of that football team. But as good as they've been, the best team at drafting football players in the past 5 years has unquestionably been the Philadelphia Eagles. Shout out to Howie Roseman, EAGLES Howie. The Eagles have been phenomenal. They have built a Super Bowl champion. They built a team that was arguably a controversial pass interference call away from winning a second. Look who they landed in those 5 years. You go back to 2021, Devonta Smith, who I think is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. 5 years in the league. He's averaging over 1,000 yards receiving a year. He's got 5,019 receiving yards, 31 touchdowns. Landon Dickerson, one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL. Milton Williams, who was excellent for Philly in their Super Bowl runs and then left for New England on a big free agent contract. Kenneth Gainwell, who was a tremendous role player. And then he went off to Pittsburgh for a year. Now he's in Tampa, but as a 5th-round pick, had huge value. In 2022, they got Jordan Davis, who's a monster at defensive tackle. They got Cam Jurgens, who is starting offensive lineman. Nakobe Dean, starting linebacker. 2023, Jalen Carter, another monster defensive tackle out of Georgia. You got all these Georgia guys. You get Nolan Smith, the Georgia linebacker. You get Sidney Brown, starting defensive back. You got Moro Ojomo in the 7th round. You got Moro Ojomo in the 7th round out of Texas, who is now your starting defensive end. And then in 2024, you go defensive back with your first 2 picks and nail both of them. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Those 2 guys together were probably what put Philly over the top in their Super Bowl run 2 seasons ago, right? The missing ingredients, absolute perfect fits for Vic Fangio's defensive scheme. Last year's draft, I don't know if you have the impact name, Jihad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama. Looks like he's going to be a good player, but a little bit early to tell. But what they were able to do from 2021 to 2024, not just landing impact players, but stars who were able to help them get over the top to win the 2nd Super Bowl in franchise history, earns Philadelphia the title of the best drafting team of the past 5 seasons in the NFL. So number 5, Tampa Bay. Shout out Jason Licht, their GM. Number 4, Houston Texans, Nick Caserio. Number 3, Seattle Seahawks and John Schneider. Number 2, Detroit Lions and Brad Holmes. And number 1, Philadelphia Eagles, Howie Roseman. Who will it be in 2026? Who's going to be the team that nails this year's draft? Can't wait to find out. And of course, we'll have it covered here at the Call Sheet. All right, that is our Monday Morning GM show. Join us on Wednesday for another Call Sheet. And on Wednesday, I'll have some details. I'm opening up a new Twitter account. I fought a losing battle trying to reclaim my old one. I'll have it up and running by Wednesday, and I'll have all the details for you then. If you can follow me on Twitter, I'd really appreciate it. I have to try to build an audience again. It was tough. You build an audience of about 10,000 followers, and then it all gets taken away from you, and then you got to try to build it back up again. It's exhausting, but hey, man, it is what it is. So we'll slug our way through. Until Wednesday, then. Hope everybody has a great day. Catch you then.